Hi, I'm Leanne Ely. I'm a nutritionist, a New York Times best-selling author, and some people even say I'm a life coach. I started the Daily Dish Show to share my story, my truth, and my journey to vibrancy, and to inspire others to do the same. Because it's all about grit, perseverance, and finding a way despite the odds. It's about embracing the whole woman, not just the parts that are easy to love, and feeding her heart, mind, body, and soul. But I found that this isn't just my story, it's your story too. It's go time. This is the Daily Dish. All right, so this was kind of something that just jarred me. Yesterday, we talked yesterday and Tuesday really about the power and the influence of our words. And we understand that the influence of our words are always going to, they're always going to come back on us. But I don't think we really truly understand the powerful way they influence even our body chemistry. Everything about our words is basically dictation on what we should do next. And it tells our bodies, it tells our brains how we should react to something. So, those negative body chemicals that come on us, that like too much cortisol or whatever it is that we stimulate in our body, often come from things that we're thinking about, truly. And we get ourselves all bent out of shape, and we start looking for evidence always to support the things that we're saying, whether it's good or bad. That's what our brains do. That's a natural thing. So I was thinking about how the influence of words and how the influence of why is it then that we put off the very things that we say that we want? Anybody know about what I'm talking about here? Hey, Margot and Carol, you know what I'm talking about, right? How about this? When you think about, I want X, Y, and Z in my life, and then you don't go after it. You ever wonder why? Oftentimes the negative self-talk comes in, well, I'm too lazy, I don't get it, or I need to do more research, or there's a whole bunch of stuff connected with it. But when we put off our lives because we don't think we deserve it, that's a lot of times what comes in. We don't think we're worth it, or we don't think we won't be worth it until we reach X. Right? Until we get to that goal, whatever your fill in the blank mystery goal is. For me, I go back to this, and I talk a lot about this because these were times in my life that were breaking points. It could have gone one way or the other, but there were times where, the suffering became so great. We see ourselves through the lens, I think, of not being enough. We don't believe we're enough until we're a certain size. We don't believe we're enough until we have achieved a certain something. This is why I was wearing a nursing bra, in my, 50, 60 pounds overweightness. I didn't believe I was enough to have a real live bra. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to know what size I was. I didn't want to know any of this stuff. I didn't believe that I was enough until I got to that place. And until that point, I hid. I hid from photos. I hid from opportunities. I remember a time where I was hired. This is the truth. This is 2000. Oh, I'm going to say 2001, 2002. And I had my radio show in the Christian radio show. It was called Heart of a Woman. And it was all over Southern California. It was a big show. And every day from 2 to 3 p.m., it was old fashioned radio show. I had a producer and like real. It wasn't, it wasn't on how they all are now. It was way before podcasts. But I just remember I was hired to do this whole, I had to go to New York and do this whole, what they called it, a satellite media tour. And you have to sit in this one spot and answer all these questions and on the radio, and then you have to do it in front of a bunch of food or whatever the sponsors are doing. And I had to do healthy breakfast choices. And I said, well, I'm not going to stand in front of a bunch of garbage Even though I was at that point, I was probably about 237, 227, 237. I still understood about healthy. And so I had there was a conundrum there because fat nutritionist, right? I mean, who's going to believe you? And I remember going in the elevator, and we're in Rockefeller Center, right? Going in the elevator, and the guy saying, and I was in my suit, I was all dressed up, I had my hair done, professional makeup done, everything. And they said, well, when's the talent going to arrive? And I remember I looked over at the guy and I said, I'm the talent. And he looked at me and he went, exactly like that, because fat nutritionist, right? I was the one going to be standing there. I was the one going to be doing all the stuff. That was me. And they got really good ratings and everything like that. But I remember how I felt. I mean, I'm so much so, how many years later am I telling you this story? I remember how it made me feel. Like I was overlooked because I didn't look a certain way. And through that lens, and here I was hired to do this. They were paying me gobs of money, flew me to New York, stayed in this gorgeous hotel, all of the things, right? But I still felt like the whole thing overshadowed me not being enough. I crash dieted before this thing. I remember the whole thing clearly. I wasn't enough because I wasn't the right size. I wasn't enough. Food Network called and said that they were interested in me, said I had the it factor, had everything else. What was missing? They didn't say it, but I knew what it was. I wasn't enough because I wasn't thin enough. And that's the thing that kept coming back. We see ourselves through this lens of not enough, and we allow all these other people to influence this not enoughness. That's the influence that we're under, is that we believe with all of our hearts that we're not enough for even a bra, that we're not enough to have the things that we want to have. And it's why we don't buy clothes that fit us properly. It's why we don't do things. It's why we don't participate in family photos. It's why we shrink back from everything that life has to offer us. So when you say, I'm not enough, not thin enough, not pretty enough, not strong enough, not financially secure enough, the list goes on, not young enough. That's another one. That's another big one in my arena right now. Not knowledgeable enough. Everybody else knows more. It's because you're in this game of comparing yourself to everyone else. You haven't yet gotten to the place of looking at yourself through the lens that the creator who made you and said, yes, you're enough. Yes, you're here. And yes, I want you here on purpose and for purpose. And by the way, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. Otherwise, why would I know the number of hairs on your head? Come on. Why would I know that? Why would I know that when this hair comes out, that's hair number 8,025 from your head? Why would I know that about you? So being under the influence of not enough is how we manage to live, though, lukewarm lives, of not taking chances, of not doing risky things, of just staying safely ensconced in our little living rooms with our Netflix and our phones and our, pantry full of cookies and chips and all kinds of garbage that continue to bring us down and enforce this notion of not being enough. See, I'm not enough. I'm just sitting here eating all this crap. I'm not enough. See, I'm all of this. I'm living a mediocre life, and this is what I've chosen. Almost in anger, almost putting your fist down. But I believe that there's a deep hunger in all of us, a deeper hunger than all of this garbage, than all of this not enoughness. I believe that the acceptance of ourselves is a hunger that's deep down within, and being able to accept ourselves exactly as we are and where we are right now today is the missing piece. I remember vividly my story. I've heard it. I'm not even going to mention it again, of getting that new bra, of trying on those clothes, of feeling good. And then when I saw, and when it clicked in, you know what I remember doing? I remember saying, I want those pants in this color, and this color. I want that shirt, that sweater, those bras, those matching panties. I want all of it. And in wild abandon, I just went absolutely crazy and left with big bags, big shopping bags, like you see on TV when they go on these big spending sprees. I did that. And it it was because not because the clothes were so great, because felt freedom at that moment to accept myself, to be totally who I was, and to acknowledge that in the fact that I had these new clothes to wear and not just trying to shimmy into something else and keep hoping and keep trying to struggling putting on this stupid nursing bra when my kids were teenagers. What does that all say? It all points to the fact that we're holding back living a life full of vibrancy because we don't believe we're enough until we reach this pinnacle. And I have to say, that is absolute crap. And you know what else I know, though? I know we all do it. In some term, in some factor or another, we shrink back from the life we truly want to live because of this notion that we're not enough until we reach fill in the blank. And I'll tell you, it's ever present. It's ever present, and it's still ever present in my life. It is. It keeps trying to rear its ever loving head into my life and trying to pop up and say, well, if somebody younger is probably going to get that. Now, I had a lot of experiences where I thought I nailed something and got something and didn't, and found out a younger guy got, like, for example, was doing something with Crock-Pot and nailed it, had it, and they were, oh, we love you, da da da. NutriBullet, same thing. I had another thing with doing a TV show at CNN with Sanjay Gupta. Nailed it. And then it didn't happen. And who got the part? Who got the thing? It was always a 30-year-old guy or something. And so I had this big chip on my shoulder about ageism and sexism and all this other kind of garbage. But at the end of the day, I believe the influence of not enoughness is the thing that takes us down. It's not, it's not that. Yeah, there might be some influence of that. Sure. There might be some. You do, Kimberline? Oh my goodness. That's amazing. Kimberline remembers the Crock-Pot thing. That was a while ago. But I believe that that's the biggest obstacle in our lives is this not enoughness. Now, how that expresses itself and how it, comes about, it's the thing that holds us back from the life that we say that we want to live. It holds us back from the life that we say that we want to live. And you know what I believe it is? It's full on resistance. It's resistance because when we say, this is what I want, and then we don't go about doing it, maybe we do for 1 or 2 days, and then we just kind of, the whole thing goes to hell in a handbasket. And then we do it again, and then we do it again, shampoo, rinse, repeat. Why? Why is that happening? Well, I believe it's what's going on in your head. Have you noticed? It's a jungle in there. Seriously, it is a jungle. There is a lot of stuff in there. You've got beliefs from way back when. You've got trauma, experiences. You've got, what else do you have in there? You've got memories, and times where you failed that influence everything. Think about it. What's in there? It's a massive tangle. I think about, like the other day for Thanksgiving, I wanted to wear this gold, I had a green sweater on, and I wanted to wear this gold necklace that went with it. Pulled it out of my jewelry box. It was all tangled up. I didn't have time for that. So I just said, you know what? No necklace. No necklace this time. I'm good with that. But that's how it is with our minds. It is a tangle of stuff, and we get lost in those tangles. We don't have time for the tangles, so we just deal with the tangles and don't end up putting the necklace on at all. So the key to me when I look at this is to unknot the knots, obviously, and stay with it until you get the necklace untangled and you can wear it. But you've got to ask yourself some questions first. You got to ask yourself some questions. What is holding me back? What am I really hungry for? What do I really want? And is it enough to just stay as I am, or does something need to change? And the first big question, of course, is why do I want this thing? Why do I want this? When we start to ask ourselves this why question of why I want this, it's going to dig at you and say, okay, so start talking, right? You have to, like now, you have to produce the goods. Nietzsche said that he who has a why can endure any how, which I love. And I'm going to put on my wall in my little gym, you know, your how shows up, and your how is going to be supported by that big, fat, hot, burning desire for the why in the first place. That's a core thing with us. That's our core decision making thing. It's the thing that heats and powers the vibrancy that we want in our lives. Period. It's the thing that does it. It's also an emotional attachment. This is, I think, really important to get behind that, because we could have vibrant vision boards for days, but never look at them, never really look at them and get ourselves worked up on them. Well, with mine, I looked at it every single day, and I looked at all the different things that were on it. But boy, did I look at that one little picture on the left quadrant that was that water picture and had the dock on it and had the tree. That's the picture I looked at. That was the thing that lit me up and got me all sparky like, right? And I always say that was the start of where I am right now today. Find a way is right, Lucy, 100%. So we have to look at the power of the pursuit of what we want is what gives us the grit. And it gives us the way to find a way. It makes us stay with it, even when we don't want to. But we have to be powered by that emotional intensity and not be afraid of it. That emotional intensity is there on purpose. This is what gives our life meaning and substance and tastiness. It's the difference between tasting a piece of chicken that's just been sauteed up in a pan versus one that's been cooked with a little seasoning and some flavors and some butter and some mushrooms and whatever else in there. There's a difference between the two. This is what adds the flavor and the zest and the multi-layers and the yumminess to our lives, that emotional part of us. I think oftentimes we dispense with the emotion, and we've learned to tap it down, as we've gone on, as we've grown up and what have you. We've learned to shut up and put up. But I say let's grab the emotional intensity that we feel about certain things and allow that to spark our why. Number 2 is we have to look at, what do I gain by getting this thing? What do I gain? Well, what if we made a list of all the benefits? I'll tell you, making those benefit lists and everything, those are things that you can look at again and again and again, and it will help you to understand what it is that you need. That's what you need to do. You'll understand what it is that you need to keep going. So here's some of the things that we need to do, though, is as we go through that list, we need to highlight those certain things that light us up. Again, our emotional connection helps us to, pro-con list, exactly, Terry. But our emotional connection to these things, those things that light us up, are the things that help carry the ball down the field. Because it gives meaning, it gives substance, it gives legs, it gives all of it. And that's why I said that in number 1, but I'm also saying it in number 2. That's why those benefit lists are so great. So when I'm telling you, like, for example, I had a program, new program I was offering, Inner Circle. When I tell you about Inner Circle, don't you want to know what the benefits are? Don't you? Okay, do you want to sign? It's a $300 program. Am I going to sign up for this program? I don't know. Let's see what's in it. You go through and you look at the benefit. Oh, okay, we're going to do that. Oh, we're going to have that. This is going to be fun. These are the things that light you up and say yes. I had 50 women who said yes to this program. Why did they say yes? Because it lit them up. What they were looking for matched the benefit program that was offered there. It wasn't just, hey, give me $300 for 12 weeks and I'll send you a book. It wasn't that at all. There was things involved in it. And I know that there were things that hit emotional buttons in these women because this is my program that I developed over the emotional buttons that I have. Does that make sense to you? I think because we keep on that thing. But we have to look at the pleasure center of our brain. We don't want it lighting up over the stuff that's going to bring us down. We want it lighting us up for the things that are going to help us to make that switch, to make that change, to get the things in our lives that we want. Number 3, kind of eyes on the prize kind of a thing, right? Number 3 is, what do I lose by getting this? That's an important question because sometimes that means things have to change. We don't think about that very often. And I'll tell you what, I coach a lot of women. Oh boy, do I coach a lot of women whose husbands push back hard. They don't like it. They don't want you to change. They want you to stay the same. Don't take away my, fill in the blank, whatever it is. They want their things to stay the same. They don't want you to change their food. They don't want you to change your food either because they want to do their things. They don't want to go to a restaurant and have you order a steak and broccoli, right? They want things to stay the same. So, anytime we change, there's always going to be naturally a little pushback, even if it's going from something really negative to something new. New and different is risky, and your brain always weighs in and says, no, don't do it. But we also get a dopamine hit when we do something positive for ourselves and we start making those changes. And that's why we're always kitchen closed and way to go, Leanne, and all of that other kind of stuff, because it helps to emphasize that little dopamine hit when we do that. It just helps to keep building the momentum that way into the things that we want. But, this natural pushback is because of the unknown. The unknown is risky, it's scary, and but we still have to look at it. It might mean that there's a little change with your friends. Maybe you're not going to get together with them. I had a coaching client who said she used to get together with her friends and have wine, and they'd get together like once a week for happy hour. And she was like pushing back a little bit on drinking so much wine and eating all those crappy appetizers and all of that. And her friends were offended, and she just kept like, how do I deal with this? And I said, you've got to have a heart to heart and just let them know. That's what we do. We have to change things. As things change, we have to change and help people to adjust to our changes. I think this is how we see things all the way through and help we get to the place of total understanding for everyone. So, there's another question too, and that's, what if I did nothing? Nothing is always an option. And sometimes we do this out of fear of rocking the boat, out of fear of all the change ahead. But sometimes, we get in a crisis and there's a doctor sitting on the other side of the desk who's saying, you need to make these changes or this is what's going to happen, right? You need to do this or you're in trouble. So making this choice to change is no longer a choice. It's an emergency. You got to do it. And maybe everybody's not going to be really happy about it. But the power of how you make these changes and how you situate yourself with all these people that are involved in your life that are always going to have something to say, by the way. There's a lot of armchair nutritionists out there. You know that. How you do this is totally up to you. But taking back your power and saying, this is what I'm doing, and you are going to have to deal with it, is totally within your ability and totally within your right to pipe up and say something about it. And number 4 is, my darling, darling friend, what if you succeed? What if you succeed? What if we look at this stuff and start thinking? We have to start asking ourselves the questions like, can you imagine what this would be? Not in the catastrophizing way, like, oh, it'll never happen. Can you imagine how awful it would be if da-da-da-da-da? No. Can you imagine if this actually succeeded, if I did this, if I had this happen to me, if this were my thing? What if? The thing is, our imaginations are the things that spark the curiosity. Our imaginations are the things that give us the creativity to figure things out. Everything is highly figure outable. We've determined that a long time ago. Might not be the determination or the way that exactly that we want it to go, but it's figure outable. Teddy Roosevelt said, to be in the arena, face marred with dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, who at best knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if she fails, at least fails while daring greatly. I want to be that woman. I want to be the woman in the arena doing my damnedest, trying as hard as I can with all that I have to achieve the thing that I've decided is important for my life. And I want you to be that woman too, because whether or not you're Diana Nyad running across the water there without the benefit of a shark cage, or you are in the arena yourself making decisions for yourself, the fact is that we are all under the influence of something. We are under the influence of our words. We are under the influence of our own intentions. And we're also under this influence of this very ugly cloud of not being enough sometimes. And it weighs in, and maybe it's less than it was, but maybe every once in a while it touches you on the shoulder. And I want to say to you right now that you are enough, and that you do have the abilities, and that you can be and have anything it is that you want, as long as you connect the dots with the emotional whyness behind it all. Why do you want it? Why do you want it in the first place? So I want you to start though today with this very thing. I want you to start today with knowing you're enough, and allow your enoughness to carry the weight of all this emotional baggage, because it can. And above all that, whatever it is that you're going to fall under the influence of, fall under the influence of the thing that you love, you want, and you have good intentions to go after, because you're worth the time to do this work, and let's just be really honest here. There's work involved when it comes to something like this, when it comes to some big goal that you might have in your life. Pinkies up. Let's do this. Peace be with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining me today. You can find me on TikTok for daily tips to help support your most vibrant life. And remember, you are the author of your own story. Until next time.